What's up, Digidestins? This is Kyle D, better known as RideMyAvatar, and today we're going to be talking none other than how to counter the big bad boogeyman of the set. So we're going to go over colors that might have an answer to each one, and hopefully this is enough to be able to, guys, get you thinking of possibilities of countering this boy. So without further ado, let's get into Magnamon X. As you know, people are really afraid of this card, and why shouldn't they be? It's a very powerful card in its own right. It has protections, it has ways of making it that the interactions with this card becomes very hard for most even tier 2 decks to even think about breathing in its direction. This thing scares and keeps tier 2, tier 3, and some even going further down the line, jank decks that you would call the rogue decks can't even keep up with this sometimes, and I get that. I mean, but it comes down to understanding how the card fundamentally works. First off, I think this is where the problem lies right here. It should have never been able to skip evolve for 5. I think it should have been a requirement to digivolve on top of a Magnamon X antibody of 2 colors that you would have to digivolve properly. I think forcing the player base to play the old Magnamon X and then having this be an option as the next level makes more sense to me, because then you have at least a turn to interact, because you couldn't be able to skip evolve twice. The fact that this thing can skip evolve from the level 4 to this is my biggest concern. I think that is where I feel like the problem came down to. If that wasn't the case and this was just changed in a different text, this card would have been actually pretty decently fair to handle. It's just, I feel like when you can promote up and then do your whole evolve protection from DP effect and do all that shenanigans with just a Magnamon X antibody, it's a problem. I think that really comes down to it. But this thing, as long as it has Magnamon X antibody, if Magnamon X antibody or a card with armor form trait is in its Digivolutions, if this Digimon isn't affected by your opponent's effects and gets plus 3000 DP until the end of opponent's turn, then unsuspend this Digimon. When a card is removed from your secure stack, you may activate this Digimon's when Digivolving effect. I think this thing should never have been a security stack either, but you know what? It works. It's very proficient. I think small things could have been changed up and the card would have been a little bit more fair, but we have what we have. We have to work with it. But the major things we have to take into account is how we're going to counter in each color. First off, let's get into red. Red has some decent ways of countering it. First off, if you clear their security stack before their Magna is live, they're going to have trouble. And I mean that extremely well, because as long as you can deal all that damage across the board, they're not going to be able to do anything with Magna, because that first when Digivolving effect, they need that security every single time. Like the first ones, they're going to get through, but the second to thirds aren't going to do much here. But taking that into account, stuff like Numemon Ace is going to be very important, because let me talk about this here, is when one of your tamers is played, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with blocker. This Blast Ace alone, as long as you can do it after they've done the first one, and then by the second time you can just Digivolve, get the tamer on board, then your opponent loses out on Magna. Yes, it'll armor purge, but it'll be a little bit smaller and a little bit easier to deal with. Then you have like Greymon being able to raid into the boy and then just take him out. The power DP thresholds are very important, especially reaching high levels like you need with Greymon. EX1 Greymon can, as long as you have a tamer in play, can delete a blocker. As long as Magna isn't active and this is going into the second turn and they didn't blinding ray the turn before, they have to wait till you hit their security. You can pop it and then they're no longer on threat. Effects that say delete a Digimon blocker is going to be huge, because Magna X is a blocker. And then even in the mirror match, Fire Rocket, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with blocker is going to be vital there as well. And then you have like Apollomon. Being able to clear out all the security stack is huge. And then when a card is removed from your opponent's security stack, delete one of your opponent's Digimon DP less than or equal to this Digimon's DP. You won't be able to beat Magna just because Apollo is going to be... It's going to have its protection. I don't know how the interaction works, because you are turn player. Technically, your effects should resolve first. I don't know, because they're both all turn effects. Your turn versus an all turn effect. If anybody can clear this up, I think Apollo can pop him at the first security check, as long as he survives, because you're a turn player, you have priority. If I'm wrong, let me know. But we also have Vikemon Valkyriemon Ace. On play, when Digivolving, all your opponent's Digimon gets minus 5,000 DP for the turn. And then when a card is removed from a security stack, delete one of your opponent's Digimon with 8,000 DP or less. All turns player as well. I think they both, because if it is your turn this going off, might help out. That might lead to being where Valkyriemon Ace and Apollo kind of shine a little bit more. Then you do have blue. Blue can stop it from swinging, which is vitally important, because if you can stop them from getting that extra security check in, their protections won't go off. You know, since they are a skipping deck, 1 Vmon plus 1 Magna plus Magnamon X, this thing can stop it from attacking and make it until the end of turn. Because it can be targeted, it locks it down. Metal Greymon can easily help prevent that from swinging the follow-up turn. Cards like Soul Ride being able to remove the armor form from the stack because they don't play the X in, they don't play in Magnamon X in the deck or to climb on top of. You now have a way of getting there. Being able to strip the armor form is going to be very important. That's why Numemon Ace and Vikemon Ace will take up major charge in that. But also being able to have, you know, Vikemon Ace de-Digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon by 2 is going to be very useful, just because getting it off there in a Blast Ace turn really does help out. And like I said, Numemon Ace ripping out the armor form is going to be really important. And then you have like Numemon X Antibody. As long as you go into this before you do your swing check, you know, when this Digimon becomes unsuspended, if this Digimon has Numemon or X Antibody's Digievolution, return all your opponent's Digimon with the lowest level to their hands. If Magna is the only card on the field, this can at least bounce him back to hand, which, as long as the protection isn't live, it's a valid target, and then it goes away. You know, stuff like that is going to be important, being able to bounce stuff and get it off the board. And like I said, Metal Garurumon, when this Digimon becomes suspended, you may unsuspend. It has evade, and then 3 of your opponent's Digimon and Tamers cannot suspend until the end of their turn, which preventing it from swinging is what you want to do. Then yellow, I think, has the most answers to, you know, Magna, because 1, we have Venusmon Access being able to blanket security, but anything that it has security attack, anything stops it when Digivolving effect, and that prevents it from gaining that protection in first place. Venusmon is a very clutch card, and it can lead to being some answers in its own right. You know, stuff like Shine Greymon Ruin Mode is going to help out just a little bit, just because that blanket minus 5k can lead to being some answers in its own self. Same thing with Rapidmon X. As long as the protection isn't live, you can just get its DP lower and force it suspended, and then you can swing in and take it out, because as long as this has Rapid or X Antibody, it gets minus 4,000 DP. And then when a Digimon is deleted by battle or having 0, it can gain you that 2 memory. But also, Pause Plugin might see some competitive play just to try to help answer it, because it shuts off the when Digivolving and gives a minus 6,000 DP effect. You know, you also have Megalo Spark as an option, because it gives it to the opponent's, one of your opponent's Digimon gets minus 8,000 DP until the end of their turn, which means Magnamon isn't as threatening. Same thing with Revelation of Light. You know, that minus 5,000 DP to the board can lead to being some shenanigans. You know, hard playing a Wyvern's Breath before their effect comes back online can help out. Same thing with Heaven's Judgment. You can do that twice on it, and then this is all before they can activate their effect. You know, stuff like Monzaemon and Numemon X Antibody are going to help out a lot, because they persist to their opponent's turn, and being able to persist your effects to your opponent's turn is what's going to help you get into the game. And then same thing with Magna Angewomon Ace, being able to do that minus 6,000 DP plus the 5,000 DP, or any combination. Let's say you just Blast Ace into Angewomon Ace, giving it a minus 6,000 DP until the end of the turn. The problem comes down to she feeds the other effect of Magna. You have to be careful, because you want to do Angewomon on your turn, not on their turn, because then you can combo Angewomon plus Megalo Spark. It will die instantly once you pass that turn, and then they have to get back into it. And that's going to be a big key piece of getting that engine going. Then in green, you have some decent countermeasures, in my opinion. You know, a security like Giant Missile, just being able to bottom deck it before the effect comes live, is going to help out a lot. You know, Izzy forcing it to redirect into a Tyrant Kabuterimon is going to be problematic for the deck, because Tyrant is a big body in itself, right? 14, and then your opponent has to now, you know, you have inheritables that make it even bigger. Magna doesn't reach the same threshold, and Tyrant just eats it, and that's going to be a big problem for it as well, because, you know, being able to force swing it in there is going to be big. And then you have like options like Shivamon to help slow down anything like Heaven's Judgment or, you know, the blinding rays to help proc it sooner. As long as you can get Shivamon shutting off their turn like that, you can definitely get into, you know, Magna that way. Hydramon, as long as the effect isn't active and you got a couple suspended dudes, Hydramon can just easily lock down Magna and get it to the bottom of the deck, and then it doesn't have its armor purge. You know, Mega Gargo Ace is going to be another very vital piece, because Mega Gargo Ace can blast evolve. It can lock it down from being able to digivolve into it, so the lower ends won't be able to go up, and then it locks it down too. So that's stuff to keep in mind. And then there is Rosemon X Antibody as an option. Suspend one of your opponent's Digimon and one of your opponent's Tamer. That Digimon and Tamer can't unsuspend until the end of turn. Opponent's turn, when an opponent's Digimon is played, you may suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. And then opponent's turn, when an opponent's Digimon moves from the breeding area to battle area, if Rosemon or X Antibody is Digivolution, you may suspend one of your opponent's Digimon. Means it lessens the attack, because we're going to be forcing to suspend, and if they remove the security, then fine. That's not as big of a deal. But it is stuff we need to keep in track of. And then in black, we do have some crazy shenanigans in the form like Chikorimon, because it is security. It de-digivolves immediately when they swing in. Any de-digivolution effect can lead to them having a bad time. You know, Plublamon is another card that you may place the top card of your opponent's. You may place the top card of one of your opponent's Digimon with vaccine in its traits at the top of your opponent's security stack. That's not a bad thing. And then, you know, that can combo nicely with Jumbo Gamamon if you're going to play that route. It's janky. I wouldn't see this very often as a counter, but it is a combo play. Then you have like Magnamon here that is security de-digivolve one of your opponent's Digimon, and then you know, one of your Digimon may digivolve into this card without paying its cost. You know, that does help out as well. You know, Cyberdramon's de-digivolution, anything with a de-digivolution inheritable, like I said. A collision is going to be a big thing. If Magna is by himself, you can force it to a block, and then you can just get bigger. If you can get bigger than it, and this is before its protections go live, you can just swing in and without confidence and make it force it armor purge, and then once you do that, you know, that can lead to being some crazy shenanigans in its own right, and that is something you want to take into account, because if you can do that, they're not going to have a good time. You know, even Dark Masters with its de-digivolution too. You know, Chaosdramon being able to de-digivolve it while the protection is not live. Laplace Demon can be very scary for them, because you can blast Ace into a black card or something like that. And then if you can get bigger with a Tai Kamiya on board, your opponent's now losing the Magna because you're forcing to attack before its protections come live. Then Purple really doesn't have much going for it. It's either use like Myotismon Ace with Retaliation and just get in there. And that's like your best bet before its protection seals go off. But then you also have like Balphamon Sleep Mode as your kind of other out to it, just to prevent it from attacking. And then really it comes down to like Numemon X Antibody. Preventing it from attacking is going to be your best bet. You know, you could delete it with stuff like Merciful Mode if they don't have the protection live. And the same thing with like Paladin Mode. You can delete it and remove all the sources so that by the time it matters, they're kind of in a bad seat. But these are all cards to help just kind of mitigate. The 7s really aren't the answer to that card. But all in all, though, you do have like Alter S as another option if you're building that kind of style of play. But I think we have a lot of potential just to try to counter him in the format. If I missed any cards, let me know down in the comments. Let players know what cards can help counter this boss monster. And with that, guys, hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you next one. Peace.